So I heard you all have been hyping up the NBA offseason as if it's going to make some type of seismic shift in the league. And honestly, I don't buy any of it. By the end of this video, you're going to be smarter about how this offseason actually reshaped the NBA, and not in the way that talking heads will make you think. You'll know which teams sold out for headlines, who quietly got fleeced, and which franchises are about to regret their moves by Christmas. Plus, I'll show you how exactly front offices are gambling with their stars, and why fans like you are going to feel the fallout all season long. Miss this breakdown and you'll miss the truth that everyone is afraid to say. Let's start with the loudest headline. Durant to the Houston Rockets looks like a power move, but when you actually dig into it, it feels more like just signing a big name and more of a PR win than a basketball one. Obviously, KD is still a bucket, but at the end of the day, he's still 37 years old, and you gave up Jalen Green and so many picks for maybe 2 years of a guy who hasn't finished a postseason healthy since the Obama administration. I judge things by championships, and while the media and people in my comments are drooling over this contender label, let me ask you, is Kevin Durant even in the top 10 anymore? Or is his name still carrying the weight that his legs inevitably can't? Next, we have Desmond Bane traded for 4 first-round picks and KCP, and the Magic are acting like they're one shooter away from a finals run. I love the player, but at that price, that is superstar capital. You don't go all in for a guy with 0 All-NBA votes and a history of foot issues when your core's average age is 23 years old. This was a panic swing dressed up like a calculated move, and it also feels like Memphis now has no direction and have no idea if they want to be planning for now or the future. Now let's go to the most disrespectful move of the offseason thus far. And this one blows my mind. Dame gives everything to Portland, gets traded to Milwaukee, and 2 years later, they waive him. No trade, no return, just a stretch contract and a press release. They are going to be eating nearly $23 million in dead cap for the next 5 years. And for what? Miles Turner? A good, not great center who's bounced around between trade rumors for 6 seasons. And if Giannis checks out mentally by December, no one should be surprised. Even for a loyal guy like him, Milwaukee went from making a calculated gamble with Dame, perhaps a few years too late, to a now very desperate cleanup job, and it's not a good look. And I guess now we're calling this perhaps Boston's surrender for at least a year. They blow it up after being 1 year removed from winning a championship. Boston's front office looked at a title-winning roster and said, nah, let's blow it up. Drew is gone, Porzingis is gone, Tatum is obviously rehabbing from an Achilles, and instead of running it back, they dumped over $200 million in salary to stay under the second apron. This was their window, and they let it slam shut. I get it, cap management matters, future flexibility and whatever, but dynasties aren't built by ducking tax penalties. Boston, you had something very real, and you folded way too early. I wouldn't let Drew Holiday walk out of the door for anything. Now on to the quote-unquote smart signings that everyone, I think, has overrated. And let's start with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Some people are lauding this as the most significant signing of the year. That's either a joke or a sad commentary on the market. He's a role player, period. Of course, I like Dorian Finney-Smith, but the hype is out of pocket. It seems like every move that the Rockets make after signing KD has everybody foaming at the mouth. Now DFS, he's declining laterally. He's 32 years old, hasn't made much of an impact when he was with the Lakers, and he just got a 4-year deal to be Dylan Brooks light. That's not a win. That's a lateral move at best. And you know I couldn't have an NBA free agency video without critiquing something that Kyrie Irving's done. But from a team perspective, let's not pretend that re-signing Kyrie Irving is some massive win. Dallas had to keep Kyrie. They have absolutely no leverage. But we know that Kyrie has become extremely injury prone and really has no other options. Both parties had no choice but to settle on each other and to make sure that they have a chance of filling any part of the stadium after kicking Luka to the curb. I see this move as a necessity, not a solution. I'm never hitching my wagon to an injury-prone mid-30s guy who's had one playoff run in the last 5 years. And now on to the quiet L's that nobody seems to be talking about. The Pelicans and Wizards trade CJ McCollum and Olynyk to Washington for Jordan Poole and Bey. It feels like one of the more confusing moves for the Pelicans, who have no idea what they want to be. It seems like Poole's confidence is shot after he thought he could be the guy and eventually proved that he was far from it. Bey seems like he can't really shoot anymore. The Pelicans didn't get younger, they got messier, and you wonder why you would trade for a guy that's barely shooting 30% from the three. If you've been watching this channel, you know how big of a fan I have been of Cade Cunningham's surge in the playoffs. He was one of the funnest dudes to watch. But I'm going to ask you this question. How is he still surrounded by non-shooters in 2025? They lost Tim Hardaway Jr. and didn't replace him with anyone. This is not a rebuild. This is clearly a rerun. They are going to need some knockdown 3-and-D guys sooner rather than later. Now let's get to the moves that are good old faithful, the ones that actually make sense. They might be boring, but they're very effective. The biggest no-brainer in the world is Oklahoma City locking up Shea with the smoothest move of the summer. MVP player, elite locker room guy, clear and unquestioned leader, cornerstone mentality for the franchise, done right. Now, we also have Michael Porter Jr. going to the Brooklyn Nets. I actually love this move for Denver. I think it was clear after this season that MPJ's run with the Nuggets was over. He lacked juice and enthusiasm on the floor, and he just wasn't that guy anymore. I think he'll benefit a ton from a change of scenery. This is a high-risk move, but at least Brooklyn's swinging for upside. If he stays healthy, MPJ is a 20-point scorer who fits next to pretty much anyone. A somewhat surprising move, LeBron James, for the first time in his career, chooses to opt into a contract in the last year rather than go for free agency or request a trade. Now, I see a lot of people making a big deal about Rich Paul's statements and how LeBron should have given maybe some more cap flexibility. Now, we all know how men are with their egos and their salaries, so I wouldn't have expected Bron to take the Tom Brady route and leave some money on the table. It's a bit concerning that Bron and Rich Paul have to come out and remind the Lakers to stay in line, because let's not pretend the Lakers were going to make any real moves anyway. And the story here actually isn't LeBron. It's more about the new ownership group and the front office once again sitting a little bit on their hands and doing what oftentimes feels like the bare minimum outside of the Luka trade. For me, the winners are OKC and the Nuggets. They didn't overreact. They didn't overpay. They're still deep, disciplined, and under the cap. And for everyone else, it's mostly L's. Houston made headlines. You know how I feel about that trade. Boston saved cash. Milwaukee took a flamethrower to their chemistry. It was a loud offseason thus far, but not necessarily a good one. So here's the truth. This offseason was more about fear than strategy. Fear of losing superstars, fear of luxury tax and the second apron, fear of criticism, and in the end, the fear that led to half-baked rosters and long-term risk dressed up as progress. That's what we're watching unfold right now. And if you're not seeing it yet, you will when the losses inevitably start piling up. So if you've made it this far, you're not just a fan, you are part of the conversation. So drop a comment with your most overrated move of the offseason. Let's talk. Hit the like button if you're tired of NBA groupthink, and subscribe if you want raw takes with receipts all season long, because this is just the beginning. Appreciate you stopping by. I will see you next time.